Hey, how you doing?
Hey, okay, I think it's recording. I'm
Yep.
good. How are you?
Yeah, we're good, Hakey. Can you stop and punch record?
You want to start again?
Yeah, because what I don't want is like, hey, how you doing? Nice to see you, that kind of thing. Because I hate when I look at people's podcasts and it's like an interaction between them two and it's nothing to do with the audience.
Why? I like it to be an interaction between us two. I don't really want to talk to the audience.
Alrighty, yeah, okay, cool. Then maybe start again.
No, but I thought because this is all just part of it though as well, isn't it?
Okay.
But I thought this is what we agreed, that we were just going to chat and record ourselves, that we weren't going to be like, hey guys, I'm this, I'm that, blah, blah, blah. Like me
Yeah.
and you were just going to chat
Yeah.
and then we were going to record it.
Yeah, well, that's what we're doing.
No, I know, but so are you cool with that? Because us
I'm
just saying
fine.
hi to each other. I mean, I'm saying hi to you because I haven't seen you.
No, that's true.
Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Hang on, let me just set up my thing.
How's your foot? What happened?
I didn't end up. It's just healed itself. So I haven't. I was going to go to the doctor, but it's cleared up heaps.
Has the sting come out?
I think so. It does. The swelling's gone down, and it's like completely a little bit of redness, but it's all seriously going.
Well, maybe because you've received the medicine. So
Yeah, that's what I think as well.
Yeah, totally. Wow, that's crazy. So Michael had an ant bite. Okay, now I am talking to the audience. Woo. Michael had an ant bite. Like, it's pretty powerful. You should share it. Maybe I should read the ant card.
Well, I got bitten on my toe, and it was my doing toe, and I went to bed that night and I woke up and my toe was like kind of throbbing and in a lot of discomfort. And I had body aches when I got up that next morning, like lots of body aches, and my body was just sort of like in a spasm. And I went and did yoga, and I haven't done yoga for probably 6 months. And throughout yoga, I just felt totally vulnerable, nauseous, wanted to cry. Sweating, just in a really lot of discomfort. And then I had to come home straight away. And then I went, laid down, and I was just sweating furiously, like just for 24 hours, just like so much sweat coming out of my body. Like my body was totally not convulsing, but it was just in full shutdown mode. And it almost felt like a plant medicine, like Cambo, that kind of venom going.
Excuse me, like a frog medicine.
Yeah, like frog medicine, where my body was like in just full detox mode, and it was really full on. And then in that afternoon, it did start to move itself on, and then last night I still had quite a fair bit of body sweat. Couldn't regulate my temperature. But in the awareness of all of it, I remember thinking that like what I'm trying to do in the long range and in the short range was all logistics and trying to nut out a clear map of life and try to engage in certainty. And it was just creating this body rush that was taking me well out of the present and just kind of triggered, I guess, just my body to like come back into the present and let go of like certainty and trying to find a really clear map about how the next 3 to 4 months is going to look, how that's going to feel, and where it's all going to happen. And throughout yoga, I just was able to let all of those logistics go and just think, the hell with this. I'm just going to come back into full body and just give body total service. And I've got the space and time that I can do it here, and was able to really just move into a yin power versus a yang distraction.
That's so good. I mean, the ant, and then I read to you the ant card, which you're pretty tuned into ant medicine anyway.
Yeah.
The ant card was all about, what did it say? Building step by step, like being patient, not rushing, which is like exactly what you were like. I mean, the last few days you've been really worried and upset, you know, about like decision making and what's going to happen next, sort of thing.
Totally.
And then,
well, ant medicine really represents building strong foundation, like, because they can carry a leaf for 2 kilometers just to put one little bit of leaf into the foundation to make the foundation perfect, you know?
yeah.
And, yeah, it's funny because I was saying to a friend the other day that, you know, in like sharing it and you know, talking from a healing perspective, it's all about like universal power and like leaning in support to the divine and the universe and all the abundance and all the magic that happens in the universal powers, to lean on that. And I kind of took myself out of that equation and put myself into this, I don't know, like a human instinct, not a universal instinct. And yeah, was able to really check in with, you know, being a leaning on the, you know, leaning into the universe for support, leaning there for guidance, and more so just leaning there for time and trust to take its place.
Totally. But I mean, yeah, because I mean, like at the best of times, that's quite challenging to surrender to divine timing and just trust the journey and trust that whatever's unraveling is perfect, you know, in the bigger picture and everything. But right now it feels even more tricky. For me, anyway, I can only speak for myself, but for me, because I think honestly, like because I watched back our podcast from last week, or I think it was when did we make that podcast? Was it like last Tuesday or last Monday or something?
Yeah.
God, it feels like a freaking eternity ago. Honestly, lockdown is such a weird thing. Like I am so grateful for it right now because it's turning my world upside down like nothing else. Well, not like nothing else because it's been turned upside down quite a number of times, but in a different sort of way. And anyway, I watched the video back of our last chat, podcast thing, whatever you want to call it. And my energy was just manic. Like I could see that. And I started to feel almost like, not judgmental, but just a bit like, what the fuck has happened to me? Like a little bit worried about myself.
Yeah.
And I could feel the energy. Well, I could feel it, but I also couldn't, like building. And then on Friday, I heard that thing on the radio that I told you where the head of the police or whatever, the police like commissioner dude, came out and said, you know, all of these people that want to protest are batshit crazy conspiracy theorists, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so I had to pull over the car and I just started making a video and just ranting my head off, which I haven't posted it because I was pretty angry and I should just post it, but I can't be asked like the thing. But I was pretty angry. But what happened was I don't know if I've told you this, but I went to Jess's for her birthday Friday night, and I walked in and like I was just bottling it all in. And then when I walked in and I said, "Oh, did you dress up for me?" And she goes, because it was her birthday, and she goes, "No, I didn't dress up for you." And I was like, "All right, I've just got to go out to the car." And I went to the car and I rang Mum and I was like, "I can't handle it anymore." Oh, like I had a full fucking complete meltdown, but one of those meltdowns where like from the depth of my soul or whatever you want to call it, my gut, I was like sobbing, like full sobbing, like the whole, like fully having like a fucking complete meltdown. And I, afterwards it was like an adrenaline spike because I can't remember what I said. I can't remember. Like it was like that was one reality, and then after that moment I was in a completely different reality. And I'm so happy that I got to that boiling point and that I exploded because and I didn't do any damage. Like I only just like cried to Mum and then pulled myself together. But it was like inner child stuff moving, I feel, because when that police commissioner got on the radio and said all of these people are batshit crazy, I could feel like, fuck you. Like, who the fuck do you think you are speaking to people like that? And it felt like, you know, being back at primary school when there were the bullies and like I was one of the misfits and, you know, you know, it felt like that, like this, you know, somebody in power telling other people that they're wrong, that they're not okay, you know. And I had a really good point. And then that was a long way to get to my point. And then 2 days ago or whatever it was, I went on a walk, Kate Woolamai, and I saw a snake, a copperhead brown snake, absolutely magnificent, like shining underbelly, like copper coloured. And I looked up the snake card. I read it to you. Snake medicine, and it's all about transmutating energy and transmutating poison and swallowing the poison, but being able to like find the masculine and feminine balance and the polarity, and then actually transmutating it from poison into something else. And in that moment, I just thought to myself, you know what, like, fuck, I've been in this question, I've been holding this question within myself of like, how do I, because I've always lived my life, well, for years now, and believe to the depth of my core that every single thing that's happening is my creation, it's my movie, it's unraveling the way that it's meant to. And in that moment, in these moments where I feel like I'm at the mercy of the authorities and there's this lockdown and we can't go further than 5 kilometres from our home and the curfew's 8 o'clock and blah, blah, blah. It's like I was struggling because I was like, okay, how can I still live in my beautiful bubble that I've created for myself and navigate these actual things that are not my choice that I feel are being placed upon me. But then I realized when I saw the snake, you know what? Like, it's always been like this. It's always been like this. This is nothing different, Rachel. Like, why am I treating this situation differently to any other situation? Like, oh, my tools don't work in this situation. Hell yeah, they work in this situation. This is no different to when I had the operation and I was at the mercy of my health, you know, or when you go through a breakup and you're at the mercy of the other person's decision, you know, if they don't want to see you again or whatever. So how is that any different? So that's when I realized, oh my God, I can apply the tools that I've always applied, which is really accepting this situation, choosing this situation, saying, I choose it to be the way that it is right now. Like, I accept it to be the way that it is right now. And then from that position, I'm not in a space of resistance. And now that that resistance is gone, now I feel like I can move more freely inside the situation. Like, don't get me wrong, I will still write the letters. I will still go to the protest if it's happening or whatever. But it's not from this space of resistance. It's not from this space of like, oh my God, I can't handle what's going on. I can't live like this. Like, there was a lot of this in my language, and I didn't feel great last week, and that's okay. Like, I'm totally cool with not having a week where I don't feel great, but it was really playing with my energy. Whereas this week I feel back in control. I'm at cause of it. I'm like, okay, you know, if I'm choosing this lockdown, if I'm choosing to be triggered, if I'm choosing to have my emotions like, and all this fire, if I'm choosing to find my voice and understand how I feel when it comes to the possibility of protesting, like, these are all really massive things that are like really benefiting me to like explore these parts and these ways within myself. And that's the medicine, you know, and I feel like that's a shift because I was really feeling like the victim of this situation. And people have always been the victim of the system. Like, how many years has there been that commentary? Oh, the system and the system. And I'm always saying to you, like, oh God, they're on and on about the system, but I've never felt at mercy of the system because I worked for myself. I made really great income because that's the way I needed my life to be. I traveled, I lived, you know, in other countries. Like, I haven't been at the mercy of this system. So I never had this constant story or this complaint, like the system. And then in this situation, all of a sudden it was like, holy shit, for like one of the first times, I'm in a battle with the system. How can I use my usual ways of being and my usual mindset in this when I'm all of a sudden found myself a victim of the system? And then I'm like, that's such a crock of shit, Rachel, because I always had the possibility of being a victim of the system the whole time. This situation is no different to any other situation where I've got the choice whether I'm the victim of the system or not. Do you know what I mean? So, and don't get me wrong, I'm still not freaking happy that we've got an 8 p.m. curfew, and I will stand up about it because I feel like it's come into my awareness for a reason. But I'm coming into this now from the space that I've, generally lived my life, which is like, okay, I'm at the source of this. I'm choosing this. I'm coming into harmony with this. Like, I've had a real power shift back into the way that I live my life and falling back onto my normal principles and things like that, rather than I was just running this story that, I can't possibly apply my normal thinking to this situation because this is just beyond anything. You know what I mean?
Well, the same white noise I had before COVID and the same white noise that still runs is still that, searching for satisfaction and happiness. And what was like, I find, regardless of like what's happening around us at the moment, like when the lockdown lifts and we all go back to normal, the issue that was there prior will still be the issue that will still exist. You know what I mean? And the thing that I've enjoyed, well, I look forward to, hearing more about people's experience of coming out of COVID, is it's giving people this opportunity to slow down, you know what I mean? And all in like, trauma and care practice and in the community sector and all health and wellbeing sector, the whole mantra is all about slow down, slow down, slow down, and ease the mind. And that's been sort of forced upon everyone to come into that. And that's going to be a scary process for a lot of people to actually slow down. And it's interesting because when I reflect, I can see where my mental health has been positive and where my mental health hasn't been that strong. And what comes up for me regularly in the last few weeks is like service to connection. So like when I'm in a good space, I have energy to service connections with others. I have service to connection with creativity. I have energy to service to, it's mostly connection, like service to connection. And I find that through slowing down and not having the rat race and the labyrinth that we've been through, we are going to have this ability to service connection. And service connection to self and service connection to others, which I think will provide a good mental health space for others when we do come out of the other side of it. Because if we just look at the mantra of slow down, like everyone's being forced to slow down. And the only other way prior to that to actually being slowed down is through like a medical issue that we may have, you know what I mean? Till we sort of actually come back in, go inwards. But I don't know, like I think also what comes up as well is, I've never been one at all to felt like governed by politics or government. And I've heard about it in other countries, but I've never felt it in Australia before. And it's like the first time ever where I can see how politicians actually have a lot more control and power over our freedom more than I ever thought possible. And, in all like Black Lives Matters and all lives matters, well, all states matter as well. And it's sort of been really pulled apart in terms of like Australia's, I guess, Anzac spirit, or where there's been a divide. And I've even heard of people saying that when like COVID and that was like in the first wave and people were crossing the border, people's car that had Queensland plates were being keyed and like told to fuck off from like being 40 kilometres away from their hometown or whatever. So it's created this like division in the states. And
even with regional and city metropolitan Melbourne, because it was the same at Phillip Island. I was so disgusted when all the locals were like, oh, our island. Yeah, I get it. You're scared because you think a deadly virus is going to start sweeping through your community. But like to turn your back on humanity like that, I don't know. It's like, sorry, but there's a contradiction there. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
Well, I don't know. Like, I think that, for me, you know, the diggers of this country who fought for our freedom, as it's been, I guess, propaganda, but lives were lost in World War One and Two, fought for the freedom of Australia, and that freedom now has been divided by people with no, they didn't go and fight a war and risk their life to go and have our freedom. And I just think of this bitch who runs this government parliament to deny a woman in New South Wales access to a thing is like the most non-Australian, most non-ethnic thing I've ever heard. And it's just created this really, I don't know, sour taste in my mouth about, you know, a lot of things. And I'm trying to disregard it, but every now and then I think about it and actually get quite fueled by it. And my mind just reverts to the past. I don't know, between our Indigenous who, you know, we colonised them and we took over their land and all this kind of stuff. And then even from the vets who lost their life fighting for freedom and democracy, all that, it all just seems to weave through me, and it's just spiking the shit out of me for some reason. And actually where I'm staying actually is on sacred Aboriginal land, the lady who told me. And yeah, I think just a lot of stuff sort of moving through me and earth energetically wise. And yeah, I've just got anger moving through me when I think about who's in charge and how it's being controlled and all this kind of crap.
Well, I can feel it because as you're speaking, I'm starting to cry because it's just like, yeah, it's really hard to understand at the moment, like the suffering. Like, I understand people lose their jobs, people, there's suffering, that's part of life. But when it feels like it's unavoidable, like such as the death of that little unborn baby, you know, a woman who had a brain tumor having to be in quarantine in a hotel by herself, just after she'd had brain surgery, like things like this. Like, you know, one of my clients couldn't see her son for 3 months because he wasn't allowed to come into the hospital after she had you know, cancer removed from her body, and they had to meet outside in a loading dock, like, and she had to force the point to see him, like, and he's like 5 years old.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. Like, I
just
you
think
know,
it goes,
and none of that makes any sense. None of those examples make any sense.
well,
Like,
there's a lack of Anzac spirit, and I refer to that. There's like a lack of Anzac spirit amongst people, Samaritans and citizens. And, you know, we all pull together in fire and flood, but when it comes to this shit, it's all been divided, and there's people at stake for this division. And I just feel that there's a real lack of Anzac spirit that's moving through this country. And, you know, all lives matter, all states matter. That's kind of what keeps coming up for me.
the thing is, babe, is honestly, like, I've had to just remind myself that it's not like, you know, I'm not absolving anybody of responsibility here because everybody's responsible for their own mindset. But when it comes to the point that, like, you know, this chick got arrested in her home for, like, in her pajamas or whatever, she's pregnant, you know, because she organized the rally, she posted about this rally or whatever, right? And, you know, honestly, like, some of the comments that are being made are like, they disgust me. I'm disgusted. I'm shocked. You know, people that I know as well, that I respect, writing things like, oh, well, she broke the law, so what did she expect? It's like, okay, honestly, like, because why is that the law? Like, just because something's the law, it doesn't mean that we don't have to question the laws that are in place. Like, to me, that law is absolutely ridiculous. Like, it's a ridiculous law. Like, we live in a democratic society. So the right to speak out and the right to protest is part of democracy. That's what it means to be in a democratic society. If you don't want to be susceptible to people going out and protesting and having a say, then don't live in a democratic society. Do you know what I mean? So I just think, you know, and no matter what she did, really, it doesn't really justify that. Okay, different if she was like endangering somebody's life in that moment. yeah, bust into a home and do whatever you've got to do to, you know, protect whatever, right? But nothing that she did justifies that treatment at all. And people are like, yeah, but we're in a pandemic, so it's selfish and she endangered people's lives. Yeah, okay, maybe 6 months ago when the pandemic started and, you know, you didn't have all these facts that, A, it's not so contagious, B, there's a 99.7% global, like, recovery rate. C, a lot of the statistics are not correct with the way that they're recording the deaths and the numbers, and they've literally come out and said that. Yeah. So anyway, but what I've had to come into within myself is that from this space of compassion, because I was starting to like almost find it difficult to respect some people, because I was feeling like there was such a disconnect for me between like who I know them to be and their attitude now to just like, oh, well, because of COVID and because we want to, you know, save ourselves from thousands of people dropping dead on the street, which is pretty obvious that that is just clearly not happening, that, you know, it doesn't matter what's happening to the old people in the old homes. It doesn't matter what's happening to people who are waiting for surgery. It doesn't matter to what's happening to people who are now borderline homeless. Like, you know, just, and all of those issues, like similar to the Premier of Queensland, how she was like, they were like, oh, do you regret saying that about that woman? And she's like, no. You know, it's like, huh? Like, you know, there's no human compassion. But I've had to really remind myself that this is a war, if you want to put it, that is being, I guess, orchestrated for us. We're being told what to think. So depending on how much exposure that you have to the media and depending on which media you expose yourself to, a lot of people, I can't hold them fully responsible for their behaviours and beliefs right now, because they are being susceptible to what I would consider hypnosis and brainwashing. And that's what's really scary, because when they put that sort of shit on the radio and when they put this sort of shit on the TV and when they highlight certain parts of what's being said in Parliament and take it out of context and all of that, they are aware of the divisive nature of that material. They're aware of that, you know, and so technically, like, you know, it's almost like we're being given our parts to play. Like, okay, you're going to be on this side and you're going to be against those people, and you're going to be on that side and you're going to be against those people. And all it's doing is it's weakening the herd. Like, we are a herd animal, and if there's a divide in the herd, it just weakens the fabric of the herd. It's, you know, what we need to do is just all realize that underneath that divide and underneath these different opinions, that we all hold the same values. Like the person who's, you know, all for the lockdown because they don't want thousands of people to die is all about love and health. And the people who are like fighting for, you know, to lift the curfew and to be able to exercise for more than an hour a day, they're all about love and health as well. Like, everybody's got their different opinion, but it all comes down to the same value set.
Well, and also there's a few things. So in Western culture, and mostly Western culture, is that we're not educated about death. We see death as a space of grievance, mourning, and like a state of full unhappiness. So Western culture removes itself from death as much as it can. So when the possibility of death moves in, people avoid it because we're not taught about the full depth and the beauty of it. Now, in personal perspective, like, people may believe that once you go, you go. But in my perspective, we keep returning to Earth, because if you get here once, you can get here twice. It's not a miracle. It's like there is a quest that we can all journey. But in my belief, that death is just as equally as beautiful. Death is equally as beautiful as living and birth. And what has happened with our medical system is, yes, that we have grown in an advancement to keep people alive longer. And that is really special, and it has its absolute divine place in everything. But however, what is that actually seeking? Well, it's seeking the death avoidance. So we're not educated about the beauty, hence why we go into years, 10 months of full grief, because we can't let the person go. But there's other parts in the world, like I think even in Mexico, that when the person has their funeral, it just, everyone becomes like happy and they're really joyful because they know that spirit or that soul has returned to a place to go return to somewhere else and to somewhere else. Like the journey continues. But in Western cultures that we are educated about death, that brings in lots of grievance and we avoid it. And with the COVID, the end result is death. And all our hospital systems, and I get it, like there has to be a response and all that kind of stuff. But all the people that have lost their life, you know, and my heart moves into their heart space, and I wish all those souls on the most beautiful quest. But I know that they're okay and they're moving forward to a very, very, very beautiful place. And it's the people that are suffering. I get that as well. And it does have an impact on you. But through our whole upbringing, like we avoid death like a mofo. And that's why, like, you know, we can only start to truly live when we truly accept death. If we only accept life without death, then it's not going to work in together. Then death can move quicker. So I feel that in the way of looking at the end result of what happens at life. And I think that a lot of the perception can be looked upon that if we all was able to grasp death in the most beautiful and the most pure way, then humanity would be a lot at ease of the end result of what a pandemic could be. Because if we call in death, we call in God. And under religion, or under all of us, we get to go home to Father and Mother in the home of her heart as well. And there's absolutely everything that's beautiful in that. But because death in society is so looked down, like we got to avoid it. And when it hits, everyone that's in that immediate circle just suffers. And there shouldn't be suffering. It should be a joyful experience. I know you may not be able to physically touch that human being no longer in the physical world. But that you weren't really ever able to either. It was just the body that you can touch at any other time. But the soul inside is what you connected to. And that soul, well, you wish them all the best forever and a day. And they've moved on to a new part of the journey. So I feel that in this pandemic, there's an awakening of what life really means and what death really means as well. And if we all can sort of understand life after death, of course, because it's a rebirth and death, as you'd always say.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I feel that the fear of death, I mean, and as we've said, this fear of death was there long before this pandemic. I mean, that's what this is all based upon. I mean, it's such a controversial topic. Like, you know, there's part of me that just doesn't even want to get into it. But my way of feeling is that if you are like, if that is your time, if that is your divine moment, that is your time and that is your divine moment. Like anybody who died of COVID was always going to die of
Correct.
COVID. Like,
correct.
But then I'm also outraged by the decision to not allow that pregnant mother of the twins to cross the border, therefore one of her unborn babies died. So I'm not saying that I jump up and down with glee, like, oh, somebody died and it's all good, you know? Like, I feel everything's meant to be from the perspective of like, that soul was meant to perish that way so that we would feel fucking pissed off and outraged about it, so that we would stand up for the way things need to be, so that in the future we can all move forward in a direction where we're operating more as from a space of oneness. There's not such a huge divide in abundance levels for people. There's equal access to health and vitality and well-being, like in the system, for example, things like that. So as controversial as it sounds, I feel like everything is unraveling the way that it's meant to right now. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to be totally cool with it, because I'm not meant to be totally cool with it, obviously, because if I was meant to be totally cool, I'd be totally cool. I'm not totally cool, and that's also what's meant to be. If I'm feeling in my gut to speak out about something, then I'm meant to be speaking out about something. That's the way that I see it. It's like, just because you say it's how it's meant to be, it doesn't mean that you are going to sit there and do nothing, because how it's meant to be might be that you're triggered as fuck and that you want to have a word and speak out about it. Does that make sense? But I'm not scared of death. I'm absolutely not scared of death, but I am scared of, what am I scared of? I'm scared of not having the life that I envision myself to have. But then again, there's the part of me that embraces it. It's like, okay, I'm meant to be in Melbourne. It wasn't my desire to be here right now. I'm meant to be here. It's not my desire to, a lot of these things were not my desire that I'm currently experiencing. It's not my desire to be inside at 8 o'clock every night. It's not my desire to spend night after night sitting here by myself. But obviously that is what I'm meant to be experiencing. But then I'm meant to be experiencing annoyance, frustration. I'm meant to be experiencing, like, do you get what I mean? So I'm sort of like navigating this feeling of like, okay, I'm a big believer that everything's unraveling exactly as it's meant to for our soul journey. And I'm a big believer in honoring my emotional triggers. I'm a big believer in honoring my intuition, my gut instinct. I'm a big believer in accepting it just the way that it is and just the way that it isn't, and not having resistance. So it's like my own ways of operating, my own beliefs are like, I'm finding how to sort of balance them and have them sort of interact with each other right now. So it's huge. It's like such a beautiful like opportunity, but there's a lot of buttons being pushed. And I think that's probably what's going on for most people, which is why we're all feeling a little rattled down here in Melbourne, you know, because like the energy is one of like questioning and answering and exploring, and it's great, you know. But the biggest thing is, yeah, to me, it's like, okay, I'm sorry, but if 100,000 people die, 100,000 people die. It's nature. It's natural. It's like, you know, you don't sort of see a stampede of animals in the African jungle. You don't see a stampede of animals like where thousands of them die and go, oh God, you know, that wasn't right. Like you just go, oh, okay, that was nature. Like there was a landslide or there was a hurricane or there was this or that. If it happens in nature and no human beings are harmed, we just look at it as nature. But then as soon as it becomes like a thing to do with our, you know, because it's like we just want to control every aspect of this, you know, with healthcare and medicines and keeping people alive longer than they should be. And all of this, like, when did this happen? Like,
well, it's like, you know what, I think Joseph Stalin, you know, one person dies is a tragic, 1,000 people die, it's a statistic. You know what I mean? So this is no longer a tragic, this has become a statistic game, you know, and I'm not affected by anyone who's died of COVID or any of that kind of pandemic. But, you know, like, I don't know, for me, like what's moves through me is just like the cycle of life and the cycle of self-purpose and what it's chosen. And I always sort of question, like, fuck, why would you choose to go to Earth in 1913 and have to go to war and get your head blown off? You know what I mean? Fucking
you were
great
probably
work.
there. You were probably there.
Do you know what I mean?
Maybe as a bird or something.
But that happened, you know what I mean? And in greater spirit, that was always going to happen. And part of your quest before you chose this vessel, this was going to happen. And, you know, like you said, like we've all, and in our awareness, like you've chosen this to happen. You knew this was going to be in this, you knew this was going to happen. You know what I mean? And.
Well, your soul, you mean like your soul before it came?
Correct. Yeah, you knew, or everyone knew this was going to happen. So there is a part of responsibility that we all need to sort of take in and take out. You know what I mean? And yeah, I think that, I don't know. I think it's just, I really do honestly think like it's the way that death's looked upon is the way that the society and the world reacts.
And half the world, like I said, we avoid death, and it's unavoidable, and that's the truth. And you got to remember too that, you know, when we do pass, like, you return home to the real mother. Like, your mum and dad aren't your real mum. They're the biological parent. They brought you here, but they're not your real mother and father.
They're a conduit. They're just a vehicle.
The real mother's earth, and the real father's sky. That's the real. And you'll go home to them. You know what I mean? And there's so much to look forward to, because there's so much to tell them when you get home. Just like a child goes home from school, but you got 80 years of like explanation and joyful experiences, and they want to hear all the joyful experiences. So it's important to always like gravitate to those experiences and never forget that you will get the chance to speak about the life after death. Mark my words.
Well, it's constantly, I believe it's constantly feeding back into the vortex, and like it's informing itself, like as we speak, you know. But I mean, you know, it's easy to talk about this when you don't have a loved one dying right next to you, but we go back to when Nana died last year. And again, people might say, oh yeah, because she was old. Yeah, she was old. And she's also one of my most important people, you know, like from a heart space, like that I've ever, like it felt, you know, it was huge for me. It doesn't really matter how old she is. Do you know what I mean? And at the moment that she was dying, I did have a bit of a meltdown when they wanted to start giving her the, you know, the painkillers and stuff that sort of make the process quicker. And, you know, my family, I guess, maybe interpreted that at the time as me wanting to hold on and not let her go. And I was trying to explain, like, I'm comfortable with her dying. I really am. For her, for me, for the universe, whatever, like, I'm sad as shit about it. And I don't really want to live without her, but I'm comfortable with it. But what I wasn't comfortable with was the medical process. Like, I wanted her to choose her moment. And like, I did end up like sort of shifting my mindset and thinking, okay, well, if I believe that everything happens the way that it's meant to, then it's meant to be happening that they want to give her these painkillers, and it's meant to be happening that that's going to speed up her process, and it's meant to be happening. So I still was able to find my peace with the fact that it did still happen all in divine timing. It's like saying that, you know, because I was due 2 weeks earlier to be born, and then I didn't end up coming, and then they induced me. So it would be like me saying, oh, because I got induced, that wasn't like the natural day that I was meant to be born. But it's like, well, that's bullshit to me, because to me, I was meant to be induced. I was meant to come on that day. So whatever process it went through was whatever process it needed to go through for me to get there on the day that I was meant to get there. And so if she died prematurely, or she died, you know, differently to how she would have with no medication, I came to realize that that was still in divine timing, and it was in its own divine way. You know what I mean? Whereas,
well, you took the death of Nana really well, where Norm you took as such a long space to get over, and that was probably, you know, a lot of other things that brought up as well. But you know,
no, because I was going through the breakup with Kane when Pa died, and what I felt was like this, because it wasn't even the breakup; it was the fact that you know, he had chosen to never see me again because of the you know, because of whatever the future relationships that he was embarking upon. It was the feeling of abandonment after such a long relationship. And then for Pa to die around the same time, I was just devastated, because I felt that there was this man, because Pa wasn't my real grandfather, remember. He was, he was I'm just clarifying that because people are listening. So basically I felt that this man who had chosen to be my grandfather and just given me nothing ever but unconditional love. And then I'd had this journey with this man and had this beautiful experience of like a 6-year relationship or 5 years or whatever it was. And then he had chosen to be dead to me, you know? And so it was like, I couldn't get my head around it at the time, because it was like I'd lost this unconditional love with my Pa, this person who loved me unconditionally, and then there was this other person whose love seemed to be so conditional to me because of the choice to be dead to me, even though he was still alive. But obviously I've made a lot of peace with all of that now, but that was such a big process, you know. But I mean, obviously that all happened for such a strong reason, because I came into all sorts of parts of myself because of that, you know, because of that. Well, you know, our journey, I met you because of that. Like, or you know, the way that we journeyed was very influenced by that, you know.
Mm. Yeah.
But yeah, I did take the death of Nanda really well,
Really well.
because I got, do you know why, Michael? Because I got to honor her. I got to be with her. You played the singing bowl over her. I got to sing to her. I got to sit with her dead body, you know? And that's what's really upsetting me about this nursing home situation. Like, I'm not afraid of people dying, but I am afraid of them dying alone like that. Like, I'm not okay with it. I'm not okay with it, because death is such an important part of life. Death is the second most important part of life. The first part is being born. The second part is dying. Like,
Right.
and I just honestly believe that if you've lived a human existence, that you shouldn't die by yourself. I don't even give a shit if you murdered 20 people. Your death should still be the death, like, honor your human existence. The fact that, you know, I honestly, truly believe that there is one universal energy, and that we all, you know, sort of come to this planet to live a human existence as the character that we're meant to play, to go on the soul journey that we're meant to go on. So, yeah, some people get cast the role of the villain in this life. You know, in another life, they're going to be like me and you, like humanitarian people who are helping people, you know. So it's like, okay, they got cast the villain this lifetime. For me, I still don't think that it should change the way that I choose to treat somebody, because that's a reflection upon me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't feel that anybody should be treated that way.
Well, that's like, you know, like conscious evolution as well. So as like we move into like 2000 with the 21st century and 22nd century, is like what we're aware of now wasn't available when we brought up. And what's beautiful is that we can share the education of death and connection, ceremony of like connection to others without them being there in the full present. And, you know, it's a beautiful time to able to, I think, educate young of your own, or, you know, as an elder to the youth community about, you know, the connection with others and the connection to self. And it's been kind of like I don't know, like an old school way of experiencing like relationship, you know what I mean? And we're evolving now, particularly in, say, you know, the communities where it talks about, you know, connection to spirit, connection to soul. We're all together, we're all oneness. And it's still kind of a hard concept, because if you're sitting here lonely as all fuck trying to find someone else to satisfy you, but someone's saying to you, oh, but you got yourself. You got yourself to make friends with, and you got yourself to connect with, you know what I mean? And we will all find that in due time, maybe not in the actual vessel that we've got now, but in the afterlife, I do find that will become like that information, will be really aware of it. But, you know, like, I think like, even, I don't know, like even, I think that like just body and mind intelligence right now is like really growing rapidly. And it's going to work in like a lot of favor for generations, like hundreds of years to come, because, you know, we will look at you when you pass over for guidance, when we look at the stars, you know what I mean? And, yeah, and I think that just the awareness of like, you know, I don't know. I just think that, yeah, just, I don't know. Just I've lost it.
It's all right, my darling. It's all right. Yeah, I get it. The other day I got really angry.
Oh, that's it.
Like,
because
yeah.
what I think, is that we're so programmed, I guess, for the future and the past. And in the present, like I've always said, when you're truly present, you won't remember the past and you won't remember the future because there's nothing there to see because it's all right here, right now. If you live it in true totality, and that's the education that we want to bring in. That's what we want to educate it. So when there is a death, it's okay to mourn it, but there's no need to gravitate to that mourning. It's moved on because the person's into a beautiful space. When there's a heartbreak in your life, it's okay. But our bodies are reciprocating to this education that it hasn't been brought into the true present. And I think that that's like a real pivot point of human existence is to like be aware of memory, but also be more aware of present body. And yeah, you can like look back and you can experience beautiful memories and the availability of heartbreak's always available. But I do feel that in the full prosperity, the full capacity of human existence, and what we're seeing in many people have come to shine, is that, you know, we're just a hologram in space, time, and matter. You know what I mean? And what we gravitate is what we gravitate, but we have the ability to totally like let it go as much as it let it comes in. And there's this like I feel that that to me is like true power where, you know, we don't want to remove grief and suffering, but it doesn't need to be, I feel, a whole life's journey of just true suffering. You know what I mean? And I think that that's where we are wanting to share with ourselves and embed it for ourselves for the generation below us can master the present. So we live it in true totality. We live in true freedom and making choices for the next 5 minutes and this moment and let the universe really come to full power in front of your eyes in full direction.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, I was just going to say that I just had a wave of emotion, but it's gone now. But I just felt really angry the other day because I felt like, because I was just having a moment of like real feeling, like this feeling of like, with the perceived divide with people, which is, I've got to really own this perception because I don't have to buy into this perception, you know? But anyway, because I just felt like saying, fuck all of you, none of you come to my fucking funeral because, you know, I can just imagine my funeral, all these hundreds of people there, and none of these motherfuckers were even able to bloody reach out, you know, in real life. And you know, be like, hey, how are you doing in isolation by yourself in an apartment, you fucking whack job conspiracy theorist, because you're bloody questioning like the fact that the government wants to keep you locked up at 8 o'clock at night, you know? And I just felt like, what the hell? Like, we glorify people after they die. We put them on pedestals. I saw my mum do it from the age of 7. The pedestal that she had Nana on was just absolutely ridiculous. Nana would have been up there like, what the hell are you doing, woman? Like, you know, it's like once somebody dies, it's like, oh, you know, it's like just, it's, you know, and it's beautiful to remember our people in love and grace, but actually, I feel it actually diminishes the life that we're living right now, because this is the life right now that we're living right now. Yes, you know, there's this utopia called heaven, or this sort of like, you know, thing that we're all aiming for. But what about how we're behaving right now on, you know, it's like, that pedestal that mum put Nana on, it actually robbed my mum of her own life force, because she had to measure up to this, you know, way of being, or, you know, her life was never going to be as great because Nana wasn't here. It's like, you know, it's not healthy. It's not healthy. Like, we're right here, right now. This is the life that we're living right now. And if you can't show up for somebody right now, then don't fucking go to their funeral. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, solid. But yeah, like, I mean, look, it feels like, you know, I know when Dad passed away, Mum done the same thing as well. Like, put him on a huge pedestal, and that was her way of like coping. I had the best, fuck the rest. You know what I mean? And I was able to, and as you know, my journey in my life evolution is that I became closer to Dad more so in the last, probably from 33 to 37, from taking his wedding ring off my spirit finger to feeling him cross over, to be able to process him as a soul, but not him as father. You know what I mean? Like, I was able to, like, his energy move through me and The contrast was only a feeling. The contrast I didn't have was him in the full reality, having a conversation or a relationship with him in the present, because that wasn't available. So to allow that person to have its full experience within my life, it was easier to exchange that relationship in death. So I had him in my heart and mind, and that energy was able to move through me at the space and the pace that it needed to go through. And there wasn't any contrast with that because he wasn't in the reality. So it was like I grew closer to him. I grew closer to his life and could feel his background. I could feel what his childhood was like without him here, without that being having any confusion or having any alternative or any other interference of allowing that experience to come through me. And it's funny because like I grew close, I was able to get closer to him after death because I was able to allow that energy of just that memory, but his energy that was left in the DNA within me, you know what I mean? So they say that you don't become full man till both parents die, okay? Because then you become the elder. And I can see the full Meredith in that as well. But I found that even like with mum, like and my father, like it almost became more of a duet than in the reality because there's nothing there to interfere it in death. But in reality, there's stuff that can interfere. You have a reaction, you have a relationship, you know what I mean? And for me, I grew closer to father, my dad, in his death because I could feel him moving across the cosmos and into new vessels and that kind of thing. But also to really allow his energy just to move through me without any interruption. Only my own heart and only my own guidance and only my own God moving through with him.
I think I think what you just said was brilliant, number one. Number two, I feel that it's because when we don't integrate, like, okay, let me put it this way: when we can integrate the character and the energy of the person who passed, then they're not sort of attached to us like another like fucking octopus stuck to the side of our head. Like with your mum, you know, she put your dad as so separate from her. Like and that's part of the pedestal. He was this amazing. He was that amazing. That amazing. Rather than integrating that energy and realizing that all of that exists within her and that he was only ever a mirror of that beauty of her own. And if she was able to really integrate him into her own spirit, I don't think him as an external would be so like really difficult. That's a difficult statement because it can take decades to come to peace with losing a partner, losing a child, losing a parent. And that's part of our journey, and that's perfect. There's no right or wrong way to go about it. It's completely normal to feel all of that. She was meant to lose her husband. Like that was part of her soul purpose, but her soul's journey to discover whatever her purpose is. But I feel that she sort of externalized him instead of internalizing him and really understanding that he was only ever a reflection of her own magnificence. Yes, we miss the person in the physical form, but she can integrate all of that, his character. Do you know what I mean? And that's what you say about how, you know, you don't fully step into your full self until both parents pass over, because I think that that's the opportunity to have that integration of it's almost like, you know, the seed, like reseeding in itself.
Totally. It's a fine line because we're the only species where child needs mother to survive. Because then you have the jungle, like you have mama whale, she gets chewed up by a shark. Mama baby calf does the Harry Houdini, but can go and survive. You know what I mean? It's instinctual. But we're not. But then it gets to a point where we've got to like detach ourselves from the growing up part, detach ourselves from mother and father. You know what I mean? And that's where I've read literature where the child gets to 12 and they relinquish the active role of mother and father and they become a collective member of the community, which is Mother Earth and Father Sky. And they actually have to play a role in their membership of society, not mum and dad actively playing that role for them. And I think that's really beautiful because I do feel that I haven't had a child, but, you know, we can have this attachment of, you know, and it's funny because we are a herd animal, but then sometimes I think like, well, but like, really, are we? You know what I mean? Because
we're not living like herd animals.
nah, and I think in that like, I guess I think we're a sociable animal, and I guess I don't know social and herds if they're the same thing, but you know, like, I don't know, like, I don't know. I don't know how to really answer
But
that.
I think
But
that's
I
where a lot of
definitely,
our problems stem from, is that we're not living in that way.
yeah, well, or that, you know, the connection between mother and father is too close. You know what I mean? Like, they are your biological parent. I get it. They have to nurture you to bring you into survival so you can go out there and have what we call in the sector a healthy relationship and all this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? But then there's this attachment in spiritual growth where we've got to cut everything free. We've got to prune everything, you know what I mean? And then go on this spiritual journey. And it's got to be by yourself. You've got to go into silence to discover the mystery, which is by yourself. So the whole time that we go from birth, it's almost like detaching ourselves to be able to go and walk about, which again is an isolated experience, to find self, to go and gravitate to self, which is only yourself, and then journey the world by yourself, because you're only mirroring yourself. The relationship that you have with others is only a reflection of yourself. Technically, no other person exists because it's all in your mind. It's all in the hologram. So
it's all an illusion.
Where the fuck does this social and herd animal concept come from? Because under spiritual science, no one exists. Everything's a mirror of your brain. You're never in a relationship with anybody else. So to me, it's a crock of shit. So perhaps that we aren't a social animal. You know what I mean?
I think it's because like there's such an attachment from, I think a lot of people struggle so much in this human existence to receive and to be in connection with intimacy. So it's like they project their needs for intimacy onto their children, which therefore they've got too much input, too much control, trying to shape their kids to be a certain way. And we need to fucking break free of that. That's why we like, you know, and as you said, like as a 12-year-old, really, you're old enough by that stage to be having your own opinions. When I was 12 years old, I was SRC captain at the school, whatever. I was like literally canvassing for the school to be a certain way, compost bins, this and that. Like I've realized that I was brought up with quite little authority. That's what I've realized, like not in the same way as you. Like you were friggin' running around in the Yarra River or Murray River or whatever the hell it's called. You know, like you really were free like that. I wasn't. Like, okay, I wasn't even allowed to bloody play in the front garden. Like, so my dad was like full, you know, European, staunch, lock the doors, blah, blah, blah. But in regards to, I was able to choose what I wore from like 1 year old. I was choosing my own outfits. I was choosing a lot about what I ate, what I did, you know, like I didn't have this authority. I didn't need to because I didn't ever throw any tantrums or anything. So me and my parents just had this really easy thing. Like, so I'm not used to being like told what to do. I'm used to being told, my mind just started wandering because I started thinking sexually. I was going to say like, except I like to be told what to do in the bedroom. But I think that's maybe part of it. Like, it's like, I'm not really used to being told what to do. Like I recognize pretty early that I can't have a boss. I can't have an employer because I don't freaking like it. Like I like to do what I want when I want because I'm not very big on structure, routine, schedules, time, you know.
Well, here's a question. When did you start to love your mum?
Well, it's really interesting. Well, I was friggin' obviously obsessed and addicted to her from day dot. Like I was mummy's girl. Like
you always said it was
her.
the milk. It was a position of security. When did you actually start?
You don't actually know your mum. Like I honestly, one day I was in yoga. I was in my 20s, like, and I was doing her yoga class. I've been doing her yoga class since I was 18. I was sitting there in yoga, and I was just really looking at her for a moment, and I thought, oh my God, she is a complete person. Like, it was like the first time I realized that she's an actual whole person. I know that sounds really weird, but I just literally saw her as an offshoot of me. Like, she existed as my mother. She was like a character in my movie called my mum. She was like part of me. She was my mum. Like, and that one day I really saw, fuck, there's all these other people in this yoga class that are literally looking at her right now and not seeing their mum. They're seeing Wendy. They're seeing a whole human being that they are completely separate from. Wow. What must that be like to see her as a whole person? Because I saw her as an offshoot of me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that was the first time. Probably I was still living with them maybe. So it was quite, we were quite joined at that stage. That was like one of the first times that I really saw her as a separate human being of her own, that, existed beyond me or without me. I mean, I don't really actually believe that anybody exists beyond me because I make everybody up with my perception. So after we finish this video chat, do you still exist once I can't see you anymore? You don't for me. Like right now, everybody's just a fucking little pantomime in my mind. Are my auntie and uncle alive? Like when I'm not looking at them? I don't know. So everything occurs within my own existence. So, it's like, what world am I creating for myself?
Yeah,
Back to what you said, I just want to quickly just finish that thought about, I just feel that parents, like, I think that that's the pursuit of wanting to break out and be alone, because there's this sort of like entrapment situation with a lot of parenting, where we feel we've got to bust out from our conditioning because there's not enough space given. But by the same token, you're right. We are alone since the day that we're born. And then there's all this bullshit. Oh, don't get attached. Learn to be alone. Sorry, we've been learning to be alone since the moment that we were born. I think it's about remembering how to operate as one.
Mm. Yep. Yeah. I just think it's I think that I don't think anyone could answer that question. Like, when did you first love your mum? And no one could answer that.
Well, what is love? And do I actually love my mum? Like, for who she is? Do I even fucking know who she is? Like, I'm sorry to get all controversial and blah, 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 but what is actually love? And it's this universal energy, but it's like, because I believe that everything is love. Like, I am love, my hair is love, this hairband is love, my singlet's love, like everything is love. But then it's so conditional, because this unconditional love that exists in the sun and the moon and the tree and the light and everything, it's conditional when it's in a body, because this body has a condition to it. Like, this arm is a condition. This I'm a condition, like I'm conditional. So I can't experience unconditional love in a body that is conditional. And, it's all well and good. Oh, you'll have unconditional love for my mum. Yeah, but if she ran over your daughter, you would no longer have love for her, would you? Like, if she did it on purpose. So it's like, I get really triggered, reactivated and all sorts by people. This, like, are you okay day? It's, what is it? Okay, are you okay, or whatever day?
Yeah.
And people, oh, they committed suicide. Oh my God, again, don't crap on about are you okay day, and then the next day be, oh, keyboard warrior, oh, you've got a tinfoil hat and you're a conspiracy theorist. I'm sorry, but weren't you the one yesterday that was saying that you've got to stand up and ask people if they're okay, and that it's okay to reach out, and that if you feel like disconnected, to reach out? Well, have you ever thought that maybe somebody posting right now about their political views is them reaching out? And to be met with that sort of bullying, I'm sorry, but you can't be an advocate for unconditional love and are you okay day and then turn around and treat people that way. And this is where I'm in a battle between my spirituality and my humanity, which is perfect, because that's my friggin' soul purpose, like, to be here. It's like, I'm a 336, so I'm a double throat chakra and the heart. So for me, it's all about like balancing my heart and my love, and then how I want to speak and express myself in the world as a human being. And I'm aware, like, I'm living a human existence this life. Like, I'm a human. So I can't just float around in airy fairyland and like, you know, not have a say about anything because it's all spiritual and it's all meant to be. That's the core of my belief system. So therefore, if I'm feeling triggered and I feel to speak out, then I feel that that's part of my soul journey as it is. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
I'm sorry, maybe I'm going off from different, but I'm speaking just freely because I don't know, I'm over like trying to, you know, control my contradictions, because a lot of the things that I believe contradict the crap out of each other. And I can no longer, you know, I've just got to be one and okay with all of it, because somewhere it all finds its place within me because I'm cool. But when I go to speak out, a lot of things I say seem to contradict each other.
Yeah, well, that just depends on like what version you're expressing, and then the core version of what you know, I guess, what you sit in silence with. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So, yeah, it's interesting.
How long have we been talking?
Not sure.
1 hour and 13 minutes.
I'm not
okay,
sure.
maybe we should finish. I don't know if we made any points that are just relevant or even coherent, but I love talking to you.
Yeah, same, darling. Yeah, cool bananas. All right, well, let's just check out, and then obviously we'll chinwag after.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll stop the recording and then just give me a call. All right. I just want to say something. I feel like, I don't know, I just feel like it's not finished. I just want to say to anybody who's listening to this, like, I'm really grateful for life. I'm really grateful for everything that we're going through. And honestly, like, we're not alone. Like, we're never alone because we have our breath. And like, with every breath that we take, we're literally intaking divinity and Mother Earth, Father Ether, and we're literally becoming a conduit for that. So you're never, ever alone because you're always with the universe. And with every breath, we're reminded of that, you know? And yeah, it's really, for anybody who's in Melbourne right now, for anybody who's in Victoria, I hear you, I see you, I feel you. It is actually challenging right now. That is my perception. Yes. My perception is also that it's fucking beautiful. It's incredible. People are coming into their power. It's amazing. And all of that can coexist at the same time. So whatever you're feeling is completely valid. It is your perception, yes, but you are allowed to choose that perception as well. And if that's what's naturally occurring, then honor those triggers. And, you know, reach out, like just reach out. And if you do feel to take your own life, you know, I'm sorry, but taking your own life is your ultimate choice, you know. But if someone wants to take their life, I'd like to think that they took their life in a moment of powerful empowerment. Not, you know, feeling like they, again, died alone, you know. So reach out, just reach out, and make people listen. And just remember that, you know, when people kill themselves, you know, it's usually when they're quiet. You know, it's not the person that's jumping around posting all this shit. Oh, I'm miserable on Facebook. They're usually the ones that are actually okay. It's when somebody goes quiet. So when somebody goes quiet and then they start to get paranoid, because there's a lot to be paranoid about at the moment, because again, this is my perception, but you know, we're being told basically how to live our lives in our future. And then they post a conspiracy theory thing on Facebook. For the love of actual God, like, do not start tearing people down. No matter what the difference of opinion. I don't care. I am totally against most of Dan Andrews' decisions right now, but you will never hear me say a bad word about him. No, because he's a human being. You know what I mean? But I'm totally not okay with the decisions. But I'm not going to start attacking him. Like, you know, I would still talk the dude off a bridge. You know, it's not okay to be keying people's cars and putting signs on the bridge that say go home, which is what somebody did at Phillip Island. Like, ugh, I want to vomit, actually vomit. But anyway, so love you. Even the person that wrote that sign, I still have love for them. It's really challenging right now to hold the love and to hold our hearts open, but it's intimacy. And, you know, you don't sign up for the good, just the good, you know. It's like, you know, this is life. You know, we're all going through something, and it does have to be perfect because it is the soul journey that we chose. And we don't even know how we chose it. And I'm getting really emotional. I'm just in awe of the experience of life. And I'm in awe of how we ended up being here to begin with. And we don't know how we got here, and we don't know why we're here. So just like, I don't know, don't minimize it by being fucking assholes to each other. Like, that person's a miracle. Like, they're literally an absolute miracle. And, you know, for starters, we don't know how we got here and why we're here. And then it's just so much to get your head around that there's like other people who are equal to us. Like, they've got the same skin, they've got the same amount of chromosomes and whatever. And they're in a position to tell us how to live our life. Like, that's a lot to get your head around, and people are doing their best, you know? So, yeah, that's what I have to say. I feel better now.
Good. Yeah, it's like a little Jerry Springer final thought, you know what I mean? Look
Jerry's final thought.
and each other.
What does he say?
Look after yourself and each other. After you just had 5 women just mocking one brother on stage.
Exactly. I'm just going to tease the absolute crap out of you because you're wearing adult diapers, as they say in America. But yeah, we all love each other, and, you know. Yeah, exactly. But that's life. I guess maybe my journey is to be okay with violence and to be okay with division and to be okay with people being assholes. Maybe I've got to stop resisting, like, what's naturally occurring. Maybe I've just got to go out and fucking kill an animal or some shit and be okay with that part of myself. But I struggle with it. I really do struggle with it. You know, I'm really sensitive. So it's just hard to watch. You know, I know people are scared that there's a virus or whatever they're scared of. I understand, but then it's like robbing Peter to feed Paul. Like, oh, okay, like, I'm totally scared of this virus, and anybody who goes outside right now is selfish, but I'm totally cool with having all these old people locked in a home with no visitors. I'm totally cool with, like, some woman not being able to access healthcare and waiting 24 hours and then her baby dying. I'm totally cool with some woman who just had a brain tumor removed having to be in a quarantine in a hotel, a piece of shit fucking hotel that she probably had to pay for because she had to go interstate for a brain tumor operation, and then she has to quarantine by herself. Like, how can people be okay with this? And that's not even that bad. Like, over in India and Africa and all sorts. But it's just, yeah. So anyway, this is life. These are the learnings. These are the challenges. This is the life that I've chosen. This is my human experience. And yeah, like, this is just another part of it. And it's just as valuable as the part last year where I was, you know, in Bali, recuperating after my operations and honoring my health and feeling inspired and feeling like a rebirth. Like, there's nothing right, wrong, good, bad, or better or worse about it. But this is the truth of what I'm experiencing right now. I've got emotion moving, and that's part of this, you know? That's part of this. And I'm so glad that you are in Queensland. I'm so glad.
Yeah, so am I. I really am.
I'm so glad.
I've had my COVID lockdown the last 2 years anyway. It felt like that.
Yeah.
I was in a worse space than I felt if I was in Melbourne, way worse. And that's the mental prison. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've had my COVID lockdown. I do feel. It just happened 2 years before it all happened. And everyone has.
And that was an awakening.
Yep. And everyone has. And everyone will go through that mental prison, that mental challenge. it's part of the quest, and I've got questions around that. But yeah.
Well, I feel like in saying that, well, the last couple of years were really difficult for me personally too. And now a lot of the grieving that I'm doing right now is for other people, like upset at other people's suffering. So I can disattach from that. I can disassociate from that. I can even be okay with the fucking 8 o'clock curfew. Like I can always find a way to see the best in every situation. So yeah, I've come into a space of acceptance, but I don't know, like, you know, we've got to speak our truth. Like that's why we called this podcast Truth Bombs, is not because we're here to tell other people what the truth is. There is no fucking truth. Like we're just here to share our truth of how we're feeling in each moment, you know?
Yeah.
And how I'm feeling is, yeah, I'm so healthy and happy and grateful. And like, you know, because compared to the last couple of years, this is like way easier to navigate. But at the same time, yeah, I'm pretty like shocked that we're in a situation where we've got one political party basically making all the decisions, and that doesn't feel very healthy, you know, and we're not used to that. So I'm just so fascinated to see what's going to come of this and what part this has to play in humanity's evolution, natural evolution, and where we're heading. It's so unknown. It's so fucking exciting as well. Super exciting because it's so unknown. So let's see what happens next. Get your popcorn.
That's it.
All right.
Okay. Nice sign off. Good sign off.
All right, hang on. I've got to figure out where to press the thing. All right. I get nervous because I don't want to. Should I just press end? And do you think? Yeah. Because. All right. Okay. Love you.
Okay. See you, Dad. Love you. Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.